The morning sky over Seoul turned dark as massive ships blocked out the sun. Jin-ho Kim stood on the bridge of Earth's newest warship watching alien vessels appear one by one above every major city on the planet. The ships were huge, each one longer than 10 football fields and covered in metal that seemed to shift colors in the light. Jin-ho had been a captain in the Korean Navy for 20 years before joining the Space Defense Force. He was a quiet man with sharp eyes who never spoke unless he had something important to say. His crew trusted him completely because he had never led them into a fight he could not win, but today was different. Today the enemy was not human. The alien ships hung in the sky like dark clouds waiting to bring storms. They made no sound and showed no lights except for a strange blue glow that pulsed along their hulls like a heartbeat. Lieutenant Hyjin Park stood at the weapons station running her hands over controls that looked nothing like the simple guns most people expected to see on a warship. The first message from the aliens came through every radio and television on Earth. The voice was strange and mechanical, speaking broken English with words that did not fit together properly. "We are the Vorthek Empire," it said. "Your species has been selected for integration into our workforce. You will comply with our requirements or face consequence." Jin-ho listened to the message with a calm expression, but inside he felt anger building. The aliens spoke about humans like they were cattle to be rounded up and put to work. They had watched Earth for 50 years. The message continued, studying human behavior and military capabilities. The conclusion was clear: humans were too weak and divided to resist. Commander Dongwoo Lee sat in the underground command center beneath Seoul, reading reports from military bases around the world. Every major city was under threat. The aliens had positioned their ships perfectly to cause maximum fear and panic. But what the Vorthak did not know was that humans had been preparing for this day ever since the first strange signals from space had been detected decades ago. The second alien message was more direct: "You have 1 hour to surrender your governments and submit to Vorthak authority. Any resistance will result in the destruction of your cities. We have studied your primitive weapons and find them inadequate. Your species' survival depends on immediate compliance." Hyjin looked at her captain and saw something in his eyes that made her smile. Jin-ho was not afraid. In fact, he looked almost eager. The weapons officer had grown up listening to stories from her grandfather about the Korean War, about how humans could fight with incredible determination when their backs were against the wall in secret facilities hidden beneath mountains and deserts around the world. Ancient weapons were being awakened. These were not the primitive swords and guns the aliens had observed in their studies. Nuclear missiles were just the beginning, hidden away in places no satellite could see. Were weapons so dangerous that humanity had agreed to keep them secret from each other. Young engineer Bio Ram Song worked frantically in a hidden base beneath the Rocky Mountains. Her team had been developing something called Project Thunder for 8 years. The weapon did not rely on advanced alien technology or exotic materials. Instead, it used principles that most species in the galaxy had forgotten or never discovered. The Vorthak had made their first mistake by giving humans time to prepare. Their second mistake was believing that the weapons they had observed represented the full extent of human capability. What they had seen were the tools humans used to fight each other. When humans fought together against a common enemy, they became something entirely different. Boram activated the first kinetic cannon and felt the mountain shake as the weapon charged. The device looked simple, just a long metal tube pointed at the sky, but the projectile it would fire was traveling faster than anything the aliens had shields designed to stop. It was just a piece of iron the size of a marble, but it would hit with the force of a nuclear bomb. Captain Jin-ho received new orders through his secure communication system. The message was short and simple: show them what humans can really do. He turned to his weapons officer and nodded. Hyjin smiled and began activating systems that had never been used in actual combat. The aliens expected humans to surrender or fight with the same weapons they used against each other. They had seen wars where humans threw metal bullets at each other and thought this represented the limit of human creativity. What they did not understand was that humans had been holding back their most dangerous weapons for exactly this moment. Dr. Kyung-Soo Nam watched from his laboratory deep beneath Mount Jiri as his life work finally had a purpose. The kinetic resonance cannon he had built could accelerate small objects to incredible speeds, using principles borrowed from the way humans had always thrown rocks and spears. The aliens would learn that humans had been perfecting the art of throwing things for thousands of years, the Vorthek commander. Vexvar studied the human cities below and felt confident in his species' superiority. The humans had primitive aircraft that could barely leave their atmosphere. Their largest weapons were chemical explosives that could damage buildings but posed no threat to ships designed to travel between stars. What Vexvar did not know was that humans had spent the last 50 years studying every piece of alien technology that had ever crashed on Earth. They had learned to combine their own scientific knowledge with principles discovered by observing alien visitors. The result was weapons that no galactic civilization had ever encountered. Sergeant Min-jun Choi lay on a mountaintop in Korea watching the nearest Vorthak ship through his scope. He had been waiting for this moment for 3 years, ever since joining the secret weapons program. The rifle he carried looked ordinary, but the ammunition was anything but normal. Each bullet was designed to phase through alien shields and explode only after penetrating their hulls. As the 1-hour deadline approached, humans around the world made final preparations. The aliens expected panic and surrender. Instead, they found a species that had been preparing for war since before they were born. Every human conflict had been practiced for this moment. Every weapon developed had been a step toward defending their home. The Vorthek sent their final message: "Your time has expired. Prepare for integration or face destruction." They began moving their ships into position to demonstrate their power by destroying several major cities. But as they moved, something unexpected happened. The first kinetic round fired from Dr. Nam's cannon appeared on alien sensors. For only a fraction of a second before impact, the marble-sized projectile, traveling at 10% the speed of light, hit the lead Vorthek ship and simply erased it from existence. One moment the massive vessel was there, the next it was gone. In a flash of light brighter than the sun, Commander Vexvar stared at his displays in shock. His most advanced warship had been destroyed by something his sensors could barely detect. There had been no energy signature, no missile launch, no warning of any kind. The humans had somehow made one of his ships disappear all across Earth. Ancient weapons awakened and modern science revealed its true purpose. The aliens had come expecting to fight primitives with simple tools. Instead, they found themselves facing a species that had weaponized physics itself. The real war was about to begin, and the Vorthak were starting to understand they had made a terrible mistake. The humans were not harmless. They had just been waiting for the right enemy. The destruction of the first Vorthak ship sent shockwaves through the alien fleet. Commander Vexvar had watched his most advanced warship simply vanish without any warning. His sensors showed no energy weapons firing, no missiles launched, nothing that could explain how a massive starship had been reduced to atoms in an instant. Deep beneath Mount Jiri, Dr. Kyung-Soo Nam smiled as his kinetic resonance cannon recharged. The weapon was based on the simplest concept in human warfare: throwing things at your enemy. But 15 years of research had turned that basic idea into something that could crack planets. The alien shields were designed to stop energy beams and deflect missiles. They had no defense against a piece of iron traveling at impossible speeds. Sergeant Min-jun Choi adjusted his scope and prepared to fire the second shot. His position high in the Korean mountains gave him a perfect view of the alien formation. The rifle he carried looked like something a hunter might use, but the ammunition was created using principles that most galactic civilizations had abandoned as too dangerous. The bullet left his rifle without making a sound. It was no bigger than his thumb, but it carried enough kinetic energy to punch through a mountain. The Vorthak ship it hit shuddered once, then broke apart as the projectile tore through its hull from front to back. The aliens inside never knew what killed them. Captain Jin-ho Kim watched from his bridge as 2 more alien ships fell to human weapons. His crew was amazed at how quickly the mighty Vorthak fleet was being torn apart, but Jin-ho knew this was just the beginning. The real weapons had not even been revealed yet. In the Australian desert, enormous railguns began rising from hidden bunkers. These weapons used electromagnetic fields to launch projectiles across impossible distances. Dr. Wu Park had spent 20 years perfecting the design using principles borrowed from the simple coil guns that human children built as science projects. The difference was scale. The military versions could fire chunks of metal, the size of cars at speeds that bent the laws of physics. The projectiles would travel through space for hours before reaching their targets, but when they hit, nothing in the galaxy could survive. The impact engineer So-Young Kim activated the first railgun from her control station buried beneath the desert floor. The weapon charged for 30 seconds, building electromagnetic fields powerful enough to accelerate matter to incredible velocities. Then it fired, sending a tungsten rod racing toward the alien fleet at a significant fraction of light speed. The Vorthak had never encountered weapons like these. Their technology was based on energy manipulation and exotic materials, but humans had taken the basic physics of throwing rocks and pushed it beyond all reasonable limits. The aliens found themselves fighting an enemy that turned simple concepts into planet-killing weapons. Commander Xvar ordered his remaining ships to raise stronger shields and prepare for conventional warfare. He expected the humans to attack with lasers, missiles, and nuclear weapons like every other species in the galaxy. Instead, the next wave of human weapons confused his tactical computers completely. From hidden bases around the world, plasma cannons began firing. These weapons did not launch pure energy like the aliens expected. Instead, they fired superheated matter that behaved like both a projectile and an energy beam. The Vorthak defense systems could not decide whether to use energy shields or physical armor. The plasma rounds passed through energy barriers like they did not exist, then struck the alien hulls with the force of small stars. Metal that could resist most weapons in the galaxy melted like ice under a blowtorch. The Vorthak ships began losing hull integrity as human weapons ate through their defenses. Lieutenant Yoonji Lee coordinated the next phase of the attack. From her underground command center, she had studied every major battle in human history, looking for tactics that could be adapted to space warfare. The lesson was always the same: humans won by doing the unexpected. Hidden in Earth's oceans were weapons that combined human understanding of chemistry with lessons learned from studying dangerous sea creatures. J1 Park had spent years observing how octopi changed color, how electric eels generated current, and how deep-sea predators created their own light. His biomechanical weapons released clouds of microscopic machines that could eat through alien hull materials. While generating electromagnetic pulses, the tiny devices spread through the Vorthak fleet like a disease-causing system. Failures throughout their ships. The aliens watched in horror as their advanced technology began failing for no apparent reason. Their hull armor developed holes that spread like cancer. Their power systems fluctuated wildly. Their navigation computers started giving impossible readings, but the most devastating surprise was yet to come. Ancient weapons that had been hidden for generations were finally brought online. Devices that used sound waves to shatter materials at the molecular level. Weapons that could manipulate time on a small scale to age enemy equipment instantly. Cannons that fired bursts of compressed space-time itself. The Vorthak fleet found itself fighting an enemy that used physics in ways they had never seen. Their advanced civilization had focused on energy manipulation and exotic materials, but humans had taken simple ancient concepts and made them impossibly deadly. As more ships fell, Commander Xvar finally understood his mistake. The humans were not primitive because they used simple weapons. They were terrifying because they had taken simple concepts and weaponized the fundamental forces of the universe. A species that could turn throwing rocks into planet-cracking weapons was not one to be underestimated. Dr. Nam fired his kinetic cannon again, and another Vorthak ship ceased to exist. The weapon was so simple in concept that most aliens would have dismissed it as primitive, but the execution required an understanding of physics that few species possessed. Engineer Kim watched as her railgun projectile finally reached its target after traveling for 20 minutes through space. The tungsten rod hit a Vorthak command ship and passed completely through it, leaving a hole so perfectly round that the aliens inside had time to stare through it before their ship exploded. Biomechanical weapons continued their work, dissolving alien technology from the inside out. The microscopic machines were programmed with hunting instincts borrowed from Earth's most dangerous predators. They sought out critical systems and destroyed them with ruthless efficiency. Commander Xvar sent an emergency message to the Vorthak homeworld. Request immediate reinforcements. He transmitted. Humans have weaponized basic physics. Their weapons should not be possible, but they work anyway. We are facing an enemy that has made the impossible into reality. The battle lasted 6 more hours. By the end, only 3 Vorthic ships remained operational out of the original 12. The aliens who had come to enslave humanity found themselves fleeing for their lives from weapons that should not have existed. As the surviving ships retreated, Captain Jinho allowed himself a moment of satisfaction, but he knew this victory was just the beginning. News of the battle would spread throughout the galaxy, and other species would come to investigate what had happened. Aliens would return with more ships, better weapons, and a healthy respect for human ingenuity, but they would also find that humans had been holding back their most dangerous weapons. The real war was about to begin, and the galaxy was about to learn why humans had survived every extinction event in Earth's violent history. When humans were threatened, they did not just fight back, they evolved their weapons beyond all recognition. The ancient arsenal was awakening, and the universe would never be the same. The emergency signal that Commander Thexvar sent across the galaxy was simple but terrifying for any alien who received it. Humans are not what they appear to be. Request immediate reinforcements. They have turned basic physics into weapons of mass destruction. Do not underestimate this species. Within 12-hour ships from 14 different alien civilizations began moving toward Earth. The Galactic Council had never seen weapons like the ones humans used, and they could not allow such dangerous technology to spread. What had started as a simple conquest mission was now considered a fight for galactic survival. Captain Sujin Han commanded Earth's second line of defense from a hidden military base on the dark side of the moon. She had been monitoring alien communications for weeks, and her translation team had decoded their battle plans. More than 300 alien warships were racing toward Earth, each one carrying weapons designed to destroy entire planets. The aliens had made another crucial error in their planning. They assumed that humans would fight like other civilized species, with large ships, energy shields, and organized battle formations. But humans had learned something important from thousands of years of constant warfare. The best weapon is always the one your enemy does not expect. Dr. Xiaomin Li had been working on Project Swarm for 10 years. His inspiration came from watching ants defend their colonies and bees attacking threats to their hives. Individual humans might be physically weaker than most aliens, but humans had always been deadly when they worked together in huge numbers. From hidden factories scattered across Earth, millions of small attack drones began launching into space. Each drone was no bigger than a baseball and carried a simple explosive charge that would barely scratch a major warship. But there were so many of them that they looked like clouds of metal insects swarming through the darkness. The alien sensors barely detected the tiny craft because they appeared to be space debris or small asteroids. The Vorthak and their allies had come prepared to fight against massive human battleships. Instead, they found themselves surrounded by what looked like an angry swarm of technological locust. Flight Commander Eugene Park led the first wave of human pilots and ships that confused the alien tactical computers completely. Instead of trying to build vessels as large and powerful as alien warships, humans had created thousands of small fast fighters that moved like schools of fish through the vacuum of space. Each fighter was no bigger than an old Earth jet, but they were designed to work together in ways that made no sense to alien military doctrine. The small human craft could link their power systems, combine their weapons, and coordinate their movements with a precision that seemed almost supernatural. The alien fleet arrived expecting to face maybe 50 human ships in conventional battle formation. Instead, they found themselves in the middle of what looked like a 3-dimensional hurricane made of metal and explosives. The human swarm moved in patterns that made alien targeting computers crash from trying to process too much data. Major Taehyun Shin coordinated the attack from Earth's primary command center buried beneath the Rocky Mountains. He had spent years studying every successful military campaign in human history, from ancient Korean naval battles to modern air combat strategies. The lesson was always the same: speed and numbers could defeat size and power if used with intelligence. The aliens opened fire with their main weapon systems, expecting to destroy the human fleet with overwhelming firepower. but hitting the small human craft was like trying to kill flies with cannons. For every human ship they managed to destroy, 10 more appeared from different directions, moving too fast to track effectively. The human pilots used kamikaze tactics that seemed completely insane to the aliens but made perfect sense to a species that had always been willing to die for the survival of the group. Individual fighters would ram alien ships at incredible speeds, their small explosive charges adding up to devastating damage when dozens hit the same target. Engineer HFY Kim watched from her control station as magnetic mines began activating throughout the alien fleet. The tiny devices had been hidden among the swarm of attack drones waiting for the perfect moment to reveal themselves. When they activated, they created electromagnetic fields that interfered with alien navigation and communication systems, but the real surprise came when the human fighters began linking together. Dr. Lee's swarm technology allowed the small ships to connect their power systems and weapons, creating temporary superweapons that could match alien firepower. 100 small ships would suddenly become one massive gunfire, a blast that could cripple a battleship, then separate and scatter before the aliens could respond. The aliens had never seen anything like it. Their large ships were designed to fight other large ships in organized battles. With clear battle lines and predictable tactics, they had no defense against an enemy that attacked like a natural disaster everywhere at once, with no central target to strike back at. Commander Dekvar watched in growing horror as his reinforcements were torn apart by an enemy that seemed to multiply. Every time he destroyed part of it, the human swarm moved with intelligence, but also with the relentless hunger of predators that had been hunting in packs for millions of years. The battle lasted 8 hours, and by the end the combined alien fleet was in complete chaos. Their massive ships had been designed to intimidate enemies with their size and firepower, but when faced with thousands of small targets that moved like angry wasps, they became slow, helpless giants waiting to be stung to death. Individual human fighters were weak and easily destroyed, but the swarm as a whole seemed immortal. Every time the aliens managed to clear an area of human ships, more would appear from hidden positions or launch from concealed bases. The humans fought like they had infinite numbers and no fear of death. Dr. Lee watched his creation work with pride. The swarm tactics were based on studying Earth's most successful predators but applied to space warfare with deadly effectiveness. The aliens were learning that humans did not just use ancient weapons, they fought like ancient apex predators that had never learned to fear anything. As the surviving alien ships attempted to retreat, they found themselves chased by clouds of human fighters that followed them like wolves pursuing wounded prey. The small ships harassed the larger vessels, constantly preventing them from regrouping or making effective battle plans. Captain Han received reports from across the solar system. The alien fleet had been completely broken as an effective fighting force. Most of their ships were either destroyed or too damaged to continue fighting. The few vessels that escaped were broadcasting warnings to other species about the terrifying effectiveness of human swarm tactics. But the victory came with a cost. Earth had lost nearly half of its small fighter craft, and many brave pilots had died ramming alien ships. The human swarm had been effective, but it required constant sacrifice from individuals willing to die for the survival of their species. Major Shin knew that this battle was just the beginning. The aliens would study human tactics and return with better strategies and weapons, designed specifically to counter swarm attacks, but they would also find that humans had many more surprises waiting for them. The galaxy was starting to understand that humans were not dangerous just because of their weapons, but because of their willingness to adapt their tactics to any situation. When faced with enemies who were bigger and stronger, humans simply changed the rules of engagement entirely. As the last alien ships disappeared into hyperspace, Captain Han began preparations for the next phase of the war. The swarm had worked perfectly, but the humans knew their enemies would not make the same mistakes twice. The ancient arsenal still had many secrets to reveal, and the aliens were about to discover that everything they had seen so far was just humanity getting warmed up for the real fight. 4 months after the swarm battle, Earth's long-range sensors detected something that made every human military leader lose sleep at night. The aliens were not just sending more ships, they were bringing weapons that could destroy entire star systems. massive devices that could turn planets into clouds of radioactive dust. General Wu Jin Nam called an emergency meeting in the deepest bunker complex beneath Seoul. Present were the heads of every classified weapons program that humanity had developed. Over the past 60 years, it was time to reveal the weapons that even most world governments did not know existed. Darcy Wu Park had been waiting for this moment his entire career. For 25 years, he had been developing weapons based on the most dangerous natural phenomena in the universe. His team had found ways to create artificial black holes, control gravity waves, and manipulate the fundamental forces that held atoms together. The aliens were approaching with weapons that could crack planets open like eggs, but humans had weapons that could unravel the fabric of space itself. The problem was not power, it was control. Using these weapons was like trying to perform surgery with nuclear explosives while standing in the operating room. Captain the Jin Cho commanded the experimental ship Silent Thunder, which carried the first of humanity's deep weapons. The vessel looked ordinary from the outside, but its main cannon could fire projectiles that existed in multiple dimensions. Simultaneously, the bullets would phase through normal matter until they reached their target, then suddenly become solid inside. Enemy ships. The alien fleet that approached Earth was unlike anything seen in galactic history. 60 massive ships, each one the size of a small moon, bristled with weapons that could ignite planetary atmospheres and boil away oceans. At their center was a device called the Reality Render, a weapon that could erase matter from existence itself. Admiral Jong-Suk Lee knew that conventional tactics would be useless against weapons of this magnitude. The aliens had learned from their previous defeats and were now bringing enough firepower to sterilize the entire solar system. It was time for humanity to show why they had survived every mass extinction event in Earth's violent history. The first deep weapon to activate was Dr. Park's gravity manipulator, hidden inside a hollowed-out asteroid between Mars and Jupiter. The device began bending space-time around the alien fleet, creating gravitational fields that pointed in directions that should not exist according to normal physics. Massive enemy ships suddenly found themselves being pulled toward coordinates that did not exist in three-dimensional space. Their navigation systems failed as they tried to plot courses through areas where up and down had no meaning. The aliens experienced motion sickness as their inner ears tried to process movement through impossible directions. Engineer Myung-hee Song activated the quantum disruptors from her base deep beneath the ice of Europa. These weapons attacked the basic laws of physics in localized areas, making it impossible for complex technology to function properly. The fundamental constants of the universe began shifting randomly around the alien fleet. Alien computers crashed as the speed of light changed from moment to moment. Energy weapons failed as the charge of electrons fluctuated wildly. Whole materials lost cohesion as the strong nuclear force weakened, then strengthened unpredictably. The enemy ships began falling apart, not from damage, but from physics itself becoming unreliable. But the most terrifying weapon was the one that Dr. Young Ho Kim had been building in absolute secrecy for 18 years, called the entropy cannon. It fired beams that dramatically increased the rate at which things naturally decay and fall apart. Metal aged centuries in seconds. Energy systems discharged randomly, and organic materials simply crumbled to dust. Supreme War Leader Kethmore commanding the alien fleet watched in disbelief as his invincible armada began dissolving around him. His ships were not being destroyed by explosions or energy beams, they were simply falling apart as if they had been abandoned in space for thousands of years. Captain Cho fired the dimensional phaser at the reality render device. The weapon's projectile passed through 23 layers of alien shielding without interacting with them at all, then materialized inside the device's core and tore it apart from within. The aliens' ultimate planet-killing weapon was destroyed before they could even begin charging it. Lieutenant Colonel In Ho Beek coordinated the final assault using weapons that attacked on levels the aliens did not even know existed. Psychic disruptors, confused alien thinking processes, temporal bombs trapped enemy ships in time loops where they experienced the same few seconds over and over, and reality anchors prevented alien technology from working by enforcing Earth's version of physics in the surrounding space. The aliens found themselves fighting a species that had weaponized the fundamental laws of reality itself. Their advanced technology was useless when the universe around them no longer followed predictable rules. Human weapons did not just destroy enemy ships, they made it impossible for the ships to exist in the first place. Our park expanded the gravitational distortion field and watched as entire sections of the alien fleet were stretched across multiple dimensions simultaneously. The enemy vessels existed in normal space and 7 other dimensions at the same time. Their crews experiencing reality from impossible perspectives that drove many of them insane. Engineer Song increased the power of the quantum disruptors and observed alien ships aging at different rates. Some vessels experienced time moving backward while others aged forward at incredible speed. The fleet became a chaotic mixture of ships from different time periods, some crumbling with age, others reverting to their component materials. The entropy cannon fired continuously, bathing the alien formation in waves of accelerated decay. Everything the beams touched began falling apart at the molecular level. Advanced alien hull materials became brittle as ancient pottery. Sophisticated electronics failed as their components lost cohesion. Energy conduits leaked power as their containment systems simply stopped working. Supreme War Leader Kethmore tried to order a retreat, but his communication systems had aged into uselessness. His flagship existed partially in normal space and partially in dimensions where sound could not travel. The few messages that got through were received by ships that were experiencing time at different rates. The battle lasted only 90 minutes, but by the end, the alien fleet existed across multiple dimensions, simultaneously aging at random rates while being pulled apart by gravitational forces that violated every known law of physics. It was the most complete military defeat in the recorded history of the galaxy, as the few surviving aliens fled in ships that were barely holding together across multiple realities. Supreme War Leader Kethmore managed to send one final message to the Galactic Council: do not engage the humans again. He transmitted, they do not just have weapons, they have turned the universe itself into their weapon. The message took 3 days to reach the Council chambers because it had to travel through 17 different dimensions to find recipients who existed in the same timeline as the sender. When the Council members finally received it, they immediately called an emergency session. Dr. Kim shut down the entropy cannon and watched the affected areas of space slowly return to normal physics. The weapon had been a complete success, but using it felt like playing with forces that could destroy reality itself. If something went wrong, humanity had won another victory, but at the cost of revealing just how far they were willing to go. Admiral Lee received damage reports from across the solar system. The deep weapons had worked perfectly, but several had caused permanent changes to local space. Some areas near Earth now experienced time at slightly different rates, and a few regions had gravitational fields that would never return to normal. Captain Cho returned her ship to base, knowing that the war was far from over. The aliens would eventually find ways to counter even these weapons, but they would also discover that humanity still had deeper secrets waiting to be revealed. The ancient arsenal had many more surprises, and the galaxy was about to learn that humans had barely begun to show their true capabilities. The deep weapons had sent a clear message to every species in the galaxy: humans were not just dangerous because they could fight, they were dangerous because they were willing to break the rules of reality itself rather than accept defeat. 8 months after the reality render fleet was destroyed, representatives from every major alien civilization gathered on the neutral space station Nexus Prime. The meeting had only one topic: what to do about the humans. For the first time in recorded galactic history, an entire species was being considered too dangerous to be allowed to exist. Council leader Vex Terra of the Hegemony spoke first. Her species had ruled the central galaxy for 4,000 years, commanding fleets that could reduce star systems to cosmic dust, but even they had never developed weapons that could break the fundamental laws of physics. The humans have crossed lines that should never be crossed, she declared. They are using forces that could destroy not just worlds, but entire regions of space. Ambassador Quintal from the Science Collective presented his detailed analysis of human weapons technology. We have studied their combat methods carefully, he reported. They do not simply use advanced technology, they employ principles that we abandoned as too dangerous millions of years ago. It is as if they have no understanding of the concept of restraint or safety. What the aliens could not comprehend was that humans had evolved on a planet that was constantly trying to kill them. Earth had suffered ice ages that lasted millions of years, volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun for decades, asteroid impacts that wiped out entire species, and mass extinctions that destroyed most life on the planet. Humans had learned to fight against impossible odds because that was the only way their species had ever survived on Earth. Dr. Yoon Suk Kong monitored the alien communications from her translation center buried beneath the Sahara Desert. Her team had successfully decoded every major galactic language, and what they were hearing made it clear that the war was entering a new and more dangerous phase. The aliens were no longer planning military attacks, they were planning genocide. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Instead of fighting human weapons directly, the alien coalition would destroy Earth's sun using a device that could destabilize stars and turn them into supernovas. Earth would be vaporized along with every human in the solar system, and the dangerous human weapons technology would die with its creator's general. Moon Sik-yoon gathered Earth's top scientists and military commanders in the deepest bunker on the planet. They had perhaps 8 months before the alien Starkiller device was completed. The weapon was being constructed in a heavily defended system, 900 light-years away, protected by the combined fleets of 16 different species. This was the moment that humanity revealed its most closely guarded secret. For the past century, human scientists had been working on a project so dangerous that only 15 people on Earth knew about its existence. They called it the Genesis Protocol, and it represented the ultimate expression of human refusal to accept defeat. Dr. Hyun A. Lee had been the project's lead scientist for 35 years. The Genesis Protocol was not a weapon in any traditional sense. Instead, it was a method for rewriting the basic rules of physics in a localized area of space. It meant essentially creating a pocket universe with different natural laws where human weapons would work even better, while alien technology would become completely useless. The plan was insane even by human standards. Earth would send a small team of volunteers to the alien Starkiller facility. Instead of trying to destroy the device with conventional weapons, they would activate the Genesis Protocol and literally change the laws of physics throughout the entire star system. Captain Dongjun Park volunteered to lead the suicide mission along with 14 other specialists. They would travel in a ship designed to look like a simple cargo vessel, but carrying the most dangerous device ever created by any species in the known galaxy. The Genesis Protocol device looked deceptively simple, just a crystalline sphere about the size of a basketball. But when activated, it would create a bubble of altered reality that could expand to encompass entire solar systems. The new physics would make alien technology impossible while enhancing human weapons beyond all previous limitations. Dr. Lee worked day and night making final adjustments to the device. The mathematics involved were so complex that even she did not fully understand all the implications of what they were about to do. They would literally be rewriting the fundamental constants that governed how matter and energy behaved. Captain Park selected his crew from volunteers who understood they would never return home. The mission required getting close enough to the alien facility to activate the Genesis Protocol, which meant penetrating defenses that included 4,000 warships and energy barriers that could stop planet-killing weapons. Lieutenant Jun Ho Kim served as the mission's communications specialist, monitoring alien transmissions as their disguised ship approached the target. The Starkiller facility was larger than Earth's moon and protected by defense systems from 16 different alien civilizations. None of them suspected that a small human cargo ship posed any threat. The facility itself was a monument to alien engineering and their determination to eliminate humanity forever. Massive energy collectors gathered power from the system star, while exotic matter manipulators prepared to destabilize the nuclear fusion process that kept Earth's sun burning. The device could destroy any star in the galaxy, turning it into a supernova that would sterilize every planet in the system. Engineer Bio Young Choi monitored the Genesis Protocol device as their ship was brought aboard the alien station for a routine inspection. The aliens were being remarkably helpful, providing landing coordinates and even offering to resupply Their ship, they had no idea they were welcoming their own destruction. Darlee made final preparations in the ship's hidden laboratory. The Genesis protocol would activate in exactly 2 hours. When it did, the fundamental laws of physics would change. Throughout the entire star system, gravity would become directional instead of radial. Energy could exist in negative states. The speed of light would increase by 15%. Most importantly, for the coming battle, the principles that made alien weapons work would simply stop functioning. What the aliens did not realize was that human weapons had been designed to work under multiple different sets of physical laws. Darlee had spent decades studying theoretical physics and had designed the Genesis protocol to create conditions that would make human technology more effective while rendering alien science completely useless. Captain Park reviewed the mission plan one final time. In 90 minutes, they would activate the device that would change reality itself throughout an entire star system. The alien star killer would be destroyed not by explosions or energy weapons, but by having the physics that allowed it to exist simply stop working. The crew prepared for what would either be humanity's greatest victory or its final defeat. They were 15 people in a small ship facing the combined military might of 16 alien civilizations, but they carried with them a weapon that could rewrite the rules of existence itself. As the countdown reached its final hour, Dr. Lee activated the Genesis protocol. The device began to hum with power that existed in dimensions the aliens had never discovered. The battle for Earth's survival was about to begin, but this time the humans would be fighting in a universe where their enemies' technology could not function. The aliens were about to learn that when humans were truly desperate, they did not just break the rules of warfare. They rewrote the fundamental laws that governed reality itself. The Genesis protocol was about to change everything, and the galaxy would never be the same. Captain Dongjin Park's ship, the Silently Dangerous, drifted toward the massive alien Starkiller facility while broadcasting fake distress signals. The enormous station was larger than Earth's moon and surrounded by defense fleets from 16 different species. None of them suspected that the small human cargo vessel carried a device that could literally rewrite the laws of physics. Dr. Hene Lee worked frantically in the ship's hidden laboratory, making final adjustments to the Genesis protocol. The device looked surprisingly ordinary, just a crystalline sphere about the size of a basketball, but when activated it would create a bubble of altered reality that could expand across the entire star system. High Admiral Zor, that commanding the alien facility, barely noticed the approaching human ship. His scanners showed it carried no weapons capable of threatening a station protected by 4,000 warships. He had more important concerns. The Starkiller device was nearly ready, and soon the dangerous humans would be nothing but cosmic vapor drifting through space. Lieutenant Jin-Ho Kim monitored alien communications as their ship was brought aboard the facility for humanitarian assistance. The aliens were being remarkably helpful, offering food, medical supplies, and even technical support. They had no idea they were about to welcome the instrument of their own destruction at exactly 14:32 station time. Dr. Lee triggered the Genesis protocol for a brief moment. Nothing seemed to change. Then reality began to shift in ways that most galactic languages could not even describe. The fundamental constants that governed how matter and energy behaved started changing throughout the entire star system. In the new physics bubble created by the device, several basic laws of nature were rewritten. The speed of light increased by 15%, making energy calculations impossible for alien computers. Gravity became directional instead of radial, pulling objects toward specific coordinates rather than massive bodies. Energy could exist in negative states, creating power sources that worked backwards. Most importantly for the coming battle, the exotic principles that made alien weapons function simply stopped working. Their energy shields flickered and died as the modified physics made their power generation systems impossible. Their gravity manipulators began pulling in random directions. Their advanced hull materials lost molecular cohesion and started crumbling like ancient concrete, but human weapons became more effective than ever before. The altered physics enhanced electrical conductivity, making railguns incredibly more powerful. Kinetic weapons gained additional energy from the modified gravity fields. Even simple chemical explosives became devastatingly effective in the new reality. Sergeant Bio Young Choi led the assault team through the alien facility as its defenses collapsed around them. The aliens were desperately trying to fire weapons that no longer worked while the humans advanced with equipment that had suddenly become impossibly deadly. The Starkiller device itself provided the most spectacular failure designed to work with normal physics. It began tearing itself apart when reality changed. The massive weapon that was supposed to destroy Earth's sun collapsed into a pile of exotic matter that posed no threat to anyone. The aliens watched in horror as their ultimate weapon became a pile of expensive scrap metal. High Admiral Zoradek tried to coordinate an evacuation, but his ships could not function in the altered reality. FTL drives failed when the speed of light changed. Life support systems shut down as energy flowed in impossible directions. Communication systems filled with static as electromagnetic waves behaved according to rules that had never existed before. Dr. Lee expanded the Genesis Protocol's effect, sending waves of altered physics racing across the galaxy at faster than light speed. Within days, every alien military installation found itself operating under physical laws that made their technology completely useless. Weapons that had conquered star systems became decorative sculptures. Power sources that could fuel civilizations became paperweights. Effect was not permanent. The new physics would gradually fade over time, returning to normal in most areas within 18 months, but that was more than enough time for humanity to completely reshape the balance of power throughout the galaxy. Captain Park and his team fought their way to the station's control center using weapons that had become impossibly effective in the altered reality. Human railguns could now punch holes through materials that should have been indestructible. Plasma weapons burned through alien armor like it was made of paper. Simple explosives created devastation that defied every law of physics. The aliens thought they understood. The few alien survivors who managed to escape did so in ships that barely held together under the new physical laws. Their emergency broadcasts warned other species about the terrifying truth: humans had not just developed new weapons, they had gained the ability to change reality itself. Earth received the first reports of success when the Genesis Protocol wave reached the solar system. Human technology worked normally, but alien equipment throughout the galaxy had become useless overnight. Every alien military base, space station, and warship found itself operating in a universe where their science no longer applied. Earth's negotiators, led by Ambassador Seungmin Han, met with representatives of the Galactic Council under very different circumstances than before. The aliens, who had once considered humans too primitive to worry about, now faced a species that could literally alter the fundamental laws of nature to suit their needs. The peace treaty that emerged was unlike anything in galactic history. Humans would share certain non-dangerous technologies with other species, while the aliens would provide resources, knowledge, and raw materials to help Earth develop into a major galactic power. Most importantly, all species agreed to the universal weapons limitation protocol. No civilization would develop reality altering weapons without unanimous approval from every other species. Commander Thexvar, who had survived the initial battles, the swarm attacks, and even the deep weapons deployment, became humanity's first official alien ally. He understood what others were still learning: humans were not dangerous simply because they were violent. They were dangerous because they never stopped adapting, never accepted defeat, and never recognized limits that could not be overcome through creativity and determination. Dr. Lee monitored the gradual return of normal physics across the galaxy. The Genesis Protocol had worked perfectly, but using it had felt like playing with forces that could destroy the universe itself. If something went wrong, humanity had gained ultimate victory, but at the cost of revealing that they were willing to risk everything rather than accept extinction. The galaxy learned to fear ancient human weapons, but the real lesson ran much deeper. Humans did not just preserve their old ways of fighting, they constantly evolved them. A species that could turn simple thrown rocks into planet-cracking kinetic weapons and rewrite the laws of physics itself was one that other civilizations desperately wanted as allies rather than enemies. As the first human colonies spread to other star systems, they carried with them both the ancient weapons that had saved Earth and the knowledge that sometimes the most powerful weapon of all is the refusal to accept that anything is impossible. When humans were threatened, They did not just fight back, they changed the rules of reality until victory became inevitable. The Galactic Council established new research facilities dedicated to studying human innovation techniques. Other species wanted to learn how humans could take simple concepts and develop them into universe-changing technologies. The galaxy had discovered that the most dangerous species was not the one with the biggest weapons, but the one that never stopped finding new ways to win. Years later, when alien children learned about the human wars, they were taught the most important lesson of all: never underestimate a species simply because their weapons look primitive. Humans had proven that with enough creativity, determination, and willingness to break every rule in existence, even the most basic concepts could become tools capable of reshaping reality itself. The galaxy would never be the same, and as human explorers ventured out to distant stars, they carried with them the promise that no challenge was too great, no enemy too powerful, and no situation too hopeless for a species that had weaponized the universe itself. Humanity was just getting started, and